Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We have Bitcoin in not free fall, but it is falling. It is down to $86,000. We'll be talking about what is going on with crypto's main asset. We'll be talking Tesla surging higher to 475, a little bit down in pre-markets after that surge, as robotaxi testing goes live without safety monitors. And finally, Circle acquires Interop Labs team, leaving AXL holders out to dry. Huge implications here, we've kind of been getting the message for some time around token holder value versus equity value. We'll reflect on that and the significant implications during the course of today's show. And of course, we are delighted to have mentioned yesterday evening, we have Sport.Fun founder Adam coming onto the show later today. We're looking forward to having that conversation. Towards the end of today's show, we're going to be running a little bit over as usual when we do our interviews. Looking forward to find out more about their ICO raise taking place at 60 mil FDV. Got some good questions lined up. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general market discussion. So stay tuned for that. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. Therefore, we don't know anything for sure. So please, as always, proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Tuesday. It's the 16th of December. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Jim, doing quite well. That is, if I look at my stock portfolio, as Tesla is doing well, and I have a fair amount of Tesla, so that is the good way to look at things. Less well if I look at CoinMarketCap and see BTC sliding down. That is the thing I don't choose to look at today, except for the show where I do have to look at it and do have to go through that headline. But today I am purely an equity investor and I'm having a great day is the framing I choose for this Tuesday.
Yep. I can feel that. I can feel that entirely. It's getting harder and harder to look at the comparison. And they say comparison is the thief of joy, but you're going to have to do it at some point when it comes to investing. It's getting harder and harder to feel the comparison if you have been in Bitcoin or frankly any crypto all year, especially if you entered during the course of this year. If you're holding from lower, I understand it's it's far more chilled. You can take a long-term view. If you're sitting on large gains anyway, you're probably more relaxed still, even at this point. But however, if you came in this year and you've seen stocks do what stocks have done, and Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market doing what it has done, I can see why it's not great. But I think you're going to go into more of those details in a little bit. So we'll talk Bitcoin and we'll talk, and I actually think this Circle news is very much intertwined with some of the malaise around the crypto industry. So I'm looking forward to getting to that conversation too. Maybe one thing before we start, I just wanted to come to you here on just that we're starting up some interviews again. So we've got Sport.Fun founder Adam coming on with us today. We did interviews a while back. You're looking forward to getting this done. I think this is probably the only one we'll do before Christmas. We are taking a 2-week break for our listeners, just so you know. We'll be back again first week of Jan. What are you thinking about the interviews? You got some energy for the interviews? What are you thinking?
I do. I like our approach where we said also for the show, not only for the interviews, just to explore our own curiosity. And I feel like that this year we've also been verging outside of core crypto, have been looking into other things as well. So hopefully for next year, when you're going to have more of these interviews, we'll be able to have like a good balance of some of the top tier protocols in crypto, but also have some interesting AI chats, maybe have some robotics companies as well, and all the other things that we are looking at, because I would find that hugely, hugely educational for myself. And that would be something I'd be looking forward a lot.
That's the thing, man. Like, this is the thing which I think, hopefully, maybe this will differentiate us from other people. Maybe it doesn't matter what other people are doing to some extent, but the way that I've always thought about this, or at least my journey post legal life when I used to be a lawyer, is like the internet's just an amazing thing where you can just continue to pursue your intellectual curiosity. And I think my bet will be if you do that sincerely, you can keep people's attention, and you can bring people along on that journey with you because your interest is real and sincere. I think when people's interest is purely financial, um, then people can see through that, especially if you're going to do media as much as us and do it every single day. Of course, one of the core reasons we're here is to make money and to figure out ways to make money and figure out where the edge is, where the undervalued attention and undervalued assets might be. So of course that's a core part of it. However, but I guess my point is, like, look, if in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months, if the trend that crypto is trending down versus some other stuff and risk is going flowing more freely towards other places, then we're going to go in that direction too. Like, we're absolutely going to go in that direction. And I would love it. I'd love the idea that we're not necessarily experts on robotics, but we get to go and try and find out. I still think our natural edges in crypto, um, and it will always continue to be, but I think it gives us a nice opportunity to steadily expand our horizons and explore some of the newer things. And it doesn't mean you dump everything from one thing to the other right at the tops, I don't think. Um, but I think that's at least our reflection, and just wanted to share that with our audience as well, as we kind of reconsider our priorities and our thoughts for 2026. Any final reflections there, Ledge, before we get into the main stuff today?
Very, very much agree with that. Manifesting to have someone from SpaceX to talk to us next year as well, and I'll leave it at that.
Did you see the poly market for what the SpaceX ticker is going to be?
Sex at 7%. I think this is not a bad bet.
You think Elon would do that?
Maybe. I see Funky with his hand up. Maybe. I have another bet that I'm looking at Polymarket when it comes to Elon, real quick.
Okay.
It has too little liquidity. It did have too little liquidity last time I checked it, but it will pick up. And it is the question if Elon will become the first trillionaire before 2027. I think it's just at 8K in volume, but that would be something where I would love to put some significant money on. So hopefully some volume will come to that.
Interesting. Did you say before 2027?
Yeah.
Because I think if it wasn't closed to a year, everyone would bet yes on that, right? Like, it wouldn't be a market. But I guess adding some time constraint on that would be interesting. I think it's at this point inevitable that he does become one. It just depends on what time frame, I guess, is where.
It's trading at 42%. I think the thinking here is that his share in SpaceX at the IPO price that they're trying to make real would be worth 500 to 600-ish bill. So that IPO done in 2026 plus Tesla, its current valuation would already put him at 950, 960. So basically just a good day off from hitting $1 trillion on paper.
That's interesting. And unsurprised about the kind of general confidence in him to reach that. I guess it's just a time frame thing of when you think he's going to do that. But you said Funky's got his hand raised. Welcome to the stage, my man. Any thoughts on these early reflections before we get into the main stuff today?
No comment on sex as the ticker for SpaceX, but I do actually maybe have a lead for you because one of my former students did his master's in aerospace engineering, did projects with NASA. He has been working at SpaceX for about 3 years now. So I will reach out to him. It's a good time to catch up during the holidays. And let's see if maybe he or somebody else in the company could come on the show.
That would be fantastic. The benefits of having a wise teacher who has taught the next generation of leaders. Absolutely love it. Lex, did you want to say something?
If we make that reality, I'll stop calling Funky our US correspondent. I'll call him our space correspondent. Just getting this title upgrade.
I'm happy to be any for you guys.
That's fine. Absolutely love it. Appreciate you, Funk. Right, let's get into it. To kick the day off, as we said, we've got the Sport.Fun founder coming on with us towards the end of the show today. Cannot wait for that interview with Adam, but we've got the usual show lined up for you before we get there. So starting with the main price action, we've got Bitcoin down a couple of percent. Unfortunately, it has recovered, went as low as 86K, now up to 87. We've got ETH down 6% to 2.9K. BNB is down a couple of percent to 869. XRP is down 3% to 193. Sol is down a couple of percent too, beneath $130 to 128. And we have Hyperliquid down 6% now to $27, went as low as 26 also. Into the meme coin side of things, Doge hit again another 3% to back down to 13 cents. Pepe's down 5. Pump is down 7. Bonk is down 4. Pengu's down 4 as well. Pippin, we mentioned Pippin the other day, up 168% on the week, up 30% on the day. Something is going on there. I do not know exactly what it is, but that is the hot coin at the moment. If you're in it, you'd be making money. Probably one of the only places on the meme coin board, because SPX is down 7 as well. WIF is down 5. Fartcoin is down 5. Rect is down 20. Oof. Didn't see that. I'm not sure what the cause of that bigger move down on Rect was. But a red day in general, guys, across the board on memes. Getting into the main headlines, which we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking Bitcoin. Bitcoin as the main crypto asset is down, but we'll also flip it a little bit. Talking Tesla surging higher to around $475 as a robo-taxi testing went live without safety monitors. And also we'll be reflecting on Circle's acquisition of Interop Labs, leaving the AXL token holders out to dry. I think there's a lot of big implications coming from that, which we will discuss later. Some notable sales. We're still getting some CryptoBunk selling for in the region of 40 something ETH. Tyler Hobbs Fidenza sold for 21.5 ETH, and OpenSea went on a $1 million worth sweep of NFTs for their rewards season. They announced wave 4 now of their, I guess, rewards campaign, farming campaign, however you want to call it. But I wouldn't get too excited about these $1 million worth of NFTs, because ultimately they're going to end up in the hands of users, I think, who will maybe or most likely sell them for gains to lock in their reward gains. In other news, Ondo announces tokenized stocks and ETFs on Solana. Bitwise Hyperliquid ETF is in preparation. SEC chair says crypto could become powerful for financial surveillance. JP Morgan announces launch of tokenized money market fund on ETH. I think that is a pretty big deal. Funky mentioned this yesterday, but I wanted to include it today. Potenza goes to their first halving event. Sport.Fun ICO goes live today on Legion and Kraken. As mentioned, we've got the Sport.Fun founder Adam joining us towards the end of today's show. We will have a full conversation with him on their raise, their motivations, their product, what they think is happening there. So looking forward to that. Legion announces a Solstice ICO also coming soon to Legion. I know a lot of people in our community have allocated capital in that direction. So I'm curious to find out those details as well. Yeet announces main league big moments where creators, audiences go head to head in casino volume. Kalshi reveals multi-leg betting functionality, and Quirkies will launch the street token via TokenWorks today. So another one of those NFT strategy style tokens for an NFT project. Legendary, that is the main headlines. Those are the variety of things we've got to talk about today. Before we get to the main stuff, is there anything catching your attention before we get into the main headlines today?
And definitely, there's a couple of interesting things, but definitely the Kalshi news with them launching the parlay feature, the combos as they call them. Also doing record volumes. I think they did 340 mil in daily volume, which is a new record day for them. And in my opinion, once more moves them more into this gambling direction, which they claim not to do, obviously for legal and framing reasons. But it's unsurprising to see a feature like that coming if you have a ton of volume going into sports betting, sports predicting, and then having that on top is definitely something that people who love to do parlays have wished for a long time to also be able to do on prediction markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes complete sense to be able to do multiples. That's going to get people's ideas going even more. Especially, can you imagine if you could? Because usually, as far as I know, although I don't have a great history in gambling, to be honest, very traditionally you try and pick like the results of 12 football games on a Saturday or something, or 7 or 6 or whatever, and the more that you string together, the better your odds. I wonder whether there's a way to, and maybe this is actually available in traditional gambling, maybe Legendary, but was it always possible to string together, like, I don't know, Elon becoming a trillionaire in 2027 plus 3 matches on Saturday plus something else, like to mix and match and to go across industries in an interesting way? Was that ever possible before? I don't know. Do you have an experience of that? I think that would be pretty cool. I mean, not that I would necessarily play that game because it's very degenerate, I would say. But what do you think?
I think William Hill in the UK was one of the sportsbook casinos to offer a ton of bets around horse racing, what people would wear there and what the royals would wear, etc. But I think they wouldn't allow you to multi-leg these ones specifically, if I recall correctly. But I could be wrong. So I think if it works in that way that you just described, you can bet on BTC, a football game, plus Elon becoming a trillionaire. Then that would be novel. I think the challenge then here becomes obviously how long funds would be like locked up if you have a football game this Sunday and Elon becoming a trillionaire before the end of 2027. What would happen to that like idle capital? Because technically you could have won one like leg already by predicting the football game or like betting on the football game, and then you sit. So say you do like this multi-leg with $1,000 and you doubled up on the football game in theory, right? Because you get total odds, but in theory you doubled up on the football game. Then what happens to your Elon position that runs for like another 13 months? Can you still cash that out? Do you have to see all of these bets in your combo play out? That I don't know how it works, and I don't know how Kalshi is solving for that. So actually curious to dive into that to see what constraints they applied around that to make it work, and if it just works like traditional parlays in sports betting where you like either win all or just lose.
Interesting. Yeah, excited to see. I do excited to see. Maybe one final reflection there, Led, before we get into the main stuff, because I think this went pretty viral a couple of days ago. So curious for your take and maybe for me to give mine. Rasmus had a video which our good friend Stats quote tweeted and about Kalshi, where he said, "I don't care. I don't care about Kalshi. I know they're kind of technically building on crypto rails, but I don't care. Like we're not investors. Where there is no token, or at least to anyone's knowledge, there's no token." They've pursued a marketing campaign where you're kind of really having it pushed down your throat from all angles. Do you have any anger, animosity? I'm trying to find the right word here because I don't think they're maybe just apathy and maybe a little bit of annoyance of how hard prediction markets are getting pushed onto you from the people who've just raised a ton of money. And that's what our good friend Stats was making the point. Like they've raised obscene amounts of money, both of them and Polymarket. And so they're spending money to get users, which I think is a fairly reasonable thing to do. But have you had any visceral reaction in the same way to prediction markets? Are you letting that affect you in any way? Do you see it as a big opportunity? What's your final thought here?
No negative sentiments. I know that I'm critical when it comes to like the betting aspect of that, and I get that they are going through all the legal processes and see how this prediction market vertical will establish itself across not only Polymarket and Kalshi, but across all of the casino sportsbook and Robin Hoods and Coinbases, everyone who will integrate their own prediction market. So there will be some regulatory clarity coming to these over the next couple of years. And we're in the process of finding out how that will look like, but I don't have any like negative feelings to that. I don't care personally too much about Kalshi because, well, I'm not working with them or for them. I don't have any interest in having a deal with them. More than anything, I have maybe a high interest in Polymarket because this is, to me, more closer to crypto, and this is where I would like rather expect to see a token come and where I did more volume. So if anything, I'd care more about where Polymarket would trade in a Kalshi from the perspective of my own portfolio. But other than that, the market's the market and people like what they like. And obviously everything is moving into gambling and hyper gambling. And we could have a discussion on that, what that means on a societal level. And if we think that it's a result of financial nihilism and what that means for us as humans, that would be a completely separate thing to have. And I have a ton of opinions on that. But yeah, I don't have any strong feelings for like Kalshi or Polymarket in any way or direction.
Yeah, I take a pragmatic view as well. I think it would be intriguing to potentially work with either, but I think that they're doing what they're supposed to do. They've raised a ton of money. They did well to raise that money on the significant hype around prediction markets, and so they need to deploy that capital. I'm sure they will take note if certain people, influential people as well, think that maybe it's too much or the style of the marketing might not be favorable. But I think that's okay. It's okay for them to deploy the capital in that way to try to get more users. That's the name of the game, I think, as they are in this growth stage. So, look, we got a lot more interesting stuff to talk about today. And of course, we mentioned that Sport.Fun founder Adam is joining us towards the end of today's show to chat their ICO, which is going live today on Legion and Kraken. So we can't wait to have that conversation. In the meantime, though, we've got 3 important headlines to discuss. First and foremost, lads, you want to get to Bitcoin here. What do we need to know? What numbers are you looking at? What are you finding interesting? Bitcoin just keeps falling. I think Saylor was buying more yesterday as well. What do we need to know?
Yeah, let's take a rundown and see all of the numbers, starting with liquidation heat map. As always, liquidation heat map is green. That's not good. That means that longs have been liquidated. And in this case, to the tune of 667 mil in positions being liquidated over the last 24 hours, 584 thereof being longs, the majority being ETH and BTC. ETH leading the liquidations with 230 mil, followed by BTC with 194 mil. And in terms of the ETFs, we did see outflows yesterday, 357 mil in total net outflows from Bitcoin spot ETFs. What I did find more interesting to look at is liquidity on exchanges, because throughout the year, liquidity on exchanges has been declining. And typically, this is where we would form some sort of a bullish narrative and say, oh, okay, everyone's like withdrawing from exchanges, prices are going up. Why is this not happening now? And if we take a look at that, we can see, showing this on screen from an article on TradingView, how over the course of this year, Bitcoin exchanges have, or Bitcoin reserves on exchanges has been constantly declining, but also so has the price from 126K BTC to 86K. And the majority of liquidity does sit on Binance, and Binance is the one that sees most of the Bitcoin inflow. Basically means that the people who are taking the Bitcoin to an exchange to sell it do that via Binance, and Binance is basically leading the liquidity distribution, if you want to put it like that. That is the whale net flow chart, which I'm sharing, and you can see on the very right side of that this big orange bar, that this is the BTC whale net flow on Binance specifically. So what it basically means, because liquidity is so low, and because if major moves are happening, they're happening on Binance now, the price is reacting even more volatile than it typically would in a market or an environment where liquidity would sit on exchanges and there would be more BTC reserves. But now we have the situation where most of it is concentrated on Binance. It's still not a lot because it has been declining, and you have whales moving BTC to Binance and selling there. So even just smaller sell-offs in BTC will have an increased impact on price and increased volatility. That is it on the Bitcoin side. Taking a quick look at equities, because we'll talk about Tesla a bit later in the show. Basically, if we look at the pre-markets, all of them are pretty flat on the day. Nothing is happening. The sentiment is perfectly neutral, sitting at 51 on the Fear and Greed Index on CNN. And the other thing that I wanted to also take a quick look at is the gold price, because gold has been quietly moving up. It's back to 4.3K. Yes, it's down 0.3% on the day, but more importantly, it's up another 6% over the last month, or the last 30 days, that is. And we did have that all-time high at 4.4K, and it looks like we are climbing back and moving back into that direction.
Appreciate the update, Ledge, for all the kind of numbers that you're looking at. What's your outlook here then? I mean, I've been looking at, I don't think you mentioned Saylor there. I'm just checking here. I believe he bought, I don't know if we know the number, or was there a tweet with his number?
There was a tweet. Let's bring it up real quick. I'm researching that live on screen. Also see Funky with his hand up, by the way, but let's get that number. 980 mil, well, 10,645 BTC. That Saylor has acquired at an average price of 92K.
Yeah, I mean, this is becoming quite an unfortunate meme where I don't know how much after the purchase these things are getting reported, but it's always higher than the price at the time, and it's always much higher than the price at the time. And I think the effect of these buys are clearly non-existent now for the market. I think there was a time when seeing these buys gave strength to the market and energy to the market, and was like, okay, this is kind of underwriting the market. And now the buys are kind of happening where it ends up being at a price that is higher than the current price. But the price continues to sell off even after this news. And so you just got to be cognizant of that. Like, you just got to be aware that how it used to be is not how it is right now. Could it return to how it used to be? Sure. But we're not in the business of explaining how we want things to be. We're in the business of explaining how things are. And that's the best way to make and keep money, not only in this industry, but in general. And so there's clearly a bit of an issue here. I've seen prominent investor base 16Z kind of, maybe one of the things at the top of his list is that this sailor endless buying not having any impact on the price at all. And actually, in response to I was just scrolling his account a little bit earlier, and one of the points that he made saying is that Bitcoin is not investable until sailor is removed from the market. I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe that's a bit of a more extreme view. But Funky's got his hand raised. He's our Bitcoin correspondent. Curious for your response to that type of a perspective, Funky. I know you're a long-term Bitcoin bull. What's your thinking here?
Just two quick things, because I think my algo is more plugged into some of the Bitcoin only folks that I've seen going around lately. One is that there is a huge wall of puts, if you will, according to the post author, that's going to expire 16 million. It's going to expire in 3 days on the 19th. And then the rest, like another 90 million, is going to expire on the 26th. And that is what's keeping this very range bound. And then the other one that's been big news that I've seen a lot lately is that Jane Street, which is a massive TradFi firm, continues to buy spot and then I guess dump every day at the open. And if you look at the chart and you go around 9:30 when the market opens, it tends to fall almost every day. And they have been quietly accumulating. I think now they have the second largest IBIT position out of anyone. So there's a lot of talk about how this is all being done to kind of suppress Bitcoin from its probably arguable fair value. And that while they're accumulating these positions into year end, because then you could probably sell at a loss, tax harvest, do all these other things. And then once we get to Q1 2026, off to the races.
I do think it's, to your point about selling at a loss and the wash trading rule, my understanding, a very simplistic understanding of it, is that that's allowed in the US on crypto. So it basically functions that, like, look, if you're at a loss at the end of the year, you're allowed to kind of trade out these assets, take the loss, and then buy your assets back. And I do think crypto is unique in that way because that's not allowed for other assets. So could there be some type of games being played with crypto specifically as we go into the year end, as we kind of have to deal with some of these tax loss harvesting things? Absolutely. I do not know 100% in what direction that means. Like, maybe just purely psychologically, you would think people don't want to take. One way I was thinking about this is, like, if you've taken a lot of losses this year, or you haven't made as much, you probably don't have much money to buy Bitcoin. And if you've managed to make a ton, you kind of want to protect those gains. I'm thinking psychologically, even for myself, if we've done well this year, do you want to take the risk at this level? Like, after you've booked a good year, I feel like it requires a bit more patience for people to pick a direction here, because if you've done badly, you don't have anything to buy with. If you've done great, you're just kind of pretty content, to be honest, like pretty content with how things have gone, feeling like you don't really need to take the risk at this specific level. That's how I feel personally. And then therefore I'm assuming that would be what other people have done, are thinking also, if they're in a similar-ish position. Ledge, curious for your reflections here before we get into the next headline.
Yeah, I think on the retail side, that is perfectly correct. Like, if you haven't made that much money, now you can also not really buy the dip. That is perfectly correct, as you just said. But on the TradFi side, that would look quite different from that. And I think there you have a lot more like strategizing, planning, and all of the things that Funky had mentioned with regards to Jane Street. It's probably also happening with other institutional investors. funds, hedge funds, investment houses, whatever, and they are probably more strategic about like timing their sells and purchases with the regards of the end of the year and how to optimize for these from a tax perspective.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, look, we've got another couple, I think both of the other headlines we want to talk about today before we get to the interview with Adam, founder of Sport.Fun. Both of the headlines play in some way into some of crypto's issues. So let's attack both of them now. We're going to talk Tesla and we're going to talk Circle's acquisition of Interop Labs. And they're kind of uniquely, they're kind of different. Well, they're obviously very different, but they both play into part of the reason why crypto at large, I think is struggling to catch a bid here. So second headline for today is that Tesla's surged to almost $475. It feels like it was 400 yesterday. So really, really positive price action on Tesla. As to be honest, the rest of the S&P is kind of lagged for a little bit, or is certainly sold off a bit. Nvidia's down a bit. Some other OpenAI, AI related stocks are down a little bit. Things have cooled a touch, but Tesla has had its foot on the pedal. Part of this can be attributed, at least in the news, it's been attributed to CEO Elon Musk saying that the electric vehicle maker was testing its robo-taxis without safety monitors in the front passenger seat. So I think this is just like further developments that vision for Tesla could be coming to fruition sooner rather than later. The Reuters article goes on to say, well, much of Tesla's 1.53 trillion valuation is tied to investor optimism around its self-driving technology and humanoid robot ambitions. Don't forget that robot angle. The bulk of its revenue and profits still come from selling electric vehicles. So, you know, meaningful developments for Tesla, the car company part, is still a meaningful development. So looking at this chart, Led, you've just got a little bit down. You've got the price performance from Tesla over this year. I mean, this, you know, Tesla deserves to have its being spoken about in its own right, but because we are primarily a crypto show, it's worth layering it on top, right? In April, this stock was under 250. It dipped under 250. You know, there was all kinds of reasons for that. Elon was was conducting Doge, trying to enact some cost cutting. People started burning Teslas, getting really annoyed with how he was going about it in maybe a kind of thoughtless way. And now the stock is almost pushing 500. That is almost, not quite, but almost a 2x on one of the best companies in the world. And so when stocks are going to behave in this way, we've been speaking about this for some time now, it's very difficult to build the case to pile into crypto and be so confident. I mean, the question now is, well, what's the trend? If crypto's underperformed all that time, surely maybe there's a chance that it goes the other way around now. And that is something we need to analyze. But I think we've certainly been, or people have been out of position on that. And the frustration in that is what is translating to some of this price action as well. Les, do you have any views on Tesla as a company? You're a big holder. Any views on this latest piece of news and maybe the comparison that I just made with how the strong performance here is affecting crypto itself?
Yeah, I have quite a few thoughts on that, and probably would extend that comparison that, you know, we also have the KOLs when it comes to the stock market, and in Tesla's case, this is Howard Lutnick, who I looked up the date, was it was mid-March, around March 20th, said, buy Tesla, said it on a TV interview, we covered that on the show. Back then, Tesla was trading at $230, so you basically got a free 2x if you listened to Howard Lutnick. And I posted back then, this is when I bought Tesla, and then I bought a bit more later in the year as well. So that is literally a 2x with any size for most. Yeah, no, with any size. The company is trading at 1.6 trillion. So you could go in with billions and double up the amount if this is what you wanted to do. And I think with the point that we've been making on the show, right, as crypto is getting more institutionalized and this asymmetry is being removed a bit, it's maybe not where you get out performance, then people will look in other directions as well. And if that is to be had with with tech companies, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Nvidia, whatever, then this will be money which is probably moving out of crypto, or attention moving out of crypto and looking into other things. If you can get this amount of performance with the top tech companies, obviously, if you look at I think it was the S&P 500 in 2024, which did around 25% or so. And there was an analysis which looked at the impact of the top 7 companies, the biggest companies in there, all the tech giants. Basically, if you would remove them, then I think the S&P would only have done like 11% or so. So they're responsible for significantly more than 50% of the entire S&P's performance.
Mm.
Very, very top skewed. Also means that you have a lot of extra capital flowing into these, a lot of capital looking to get that outperformance. So it is definitely affecting crypto, and that's probably also in a healthy way. Like if we want this industry to mature, then some of that volatility needs to be removed, and it can't be the most speculative, riskiest thing on earth that everyone wants to speculate on. But it has to become a bit more stable and a bit more chill, moving in line with the market.
Okay. Look, I think that's a thoughtful answer. I definitely agree with most parts. I think this is going to increasingly compete with cryptos, and especially because a lot of these things are going to trade side by side. I think that's one of the crucial things that people haven't realized. Or maybe they have realized, we've been speaking about it for some time, but these things are literally going to trade side by side in the future, rather than you need to go trade your Bitcoin in one place, then you need to go trade your stock somewhere else. Like if you're in Robinhood now, you're going to be able to do this stuff side by side. If you're in Hyperliquid, you can do this stuff side by side. And I think that is the vision that's going to play out. So kind of related to this, but in a different way, related to the broader point of how crypto has some headwinds here. Let's get to the final headline, Ledge, on Circle's acquisition of Interop Labs. We do have, as I said, we've got Adam, founder of Sport.Fun, joining us in just a few minutes to discuss the Sport.Fun ICO taking place today on Legion and Kraken. Can't wait for that conversation. But we've got this final headline to discuss before we get there. Ledge, take it away. What do we need to know?
Absolutely. This is the news that Circle announced the signing of an agreement to acquire Interop Labs team and IP, with the deal expected to close in early 2026. That is accelerating Circle's roadmap for digital asset interoperability by building on the already widespread usage of CCTP. In recent months, Jeremy Allaire, the Circle founder, goes on to say, CCTP has handled 50% of all bridge traffic across major bridges that Circle tracks. And their goal is to combine liquidity, interoperability, distribution for asset issuers. And as a part of this, they also are building ARC as a new chain, which is optimized for asset issuers. And this acquisition, this takeover, is a means for them to accelerate all of that roadmap. The interesting part here is how the deal is structured. As I said, Circle did acquire Interop Labs, but that excludes Axelar, that excludes the AXL token and the foundation itself. So they basically got the tech, got the talent, got the people, got the IP, but they didn't get the underlying economic level of that, which is held in the token and the foundation, which did lead to the fact that the Axelar chart obviously did not like that. It's down 14% over the last 24 hours. It did raise some controversy on the timeline, with some prominent commentary coming from Mike Dudas. Said, for anyone who thinks this is a token versus equity problem, I can assure you that this is a Circle problem. Their VP Corp Dev reportedly said, I don't give a shit about your investors, to a co-founder, and bought the CEO, quote unquote, bought the CEO and IP out from under investors for no consideration. That IP and team was critical to the launch of ARC, being Circle's blockchain, which I just had mentioned. And Chad, on the other hand, had to say, this trend continues where big guns buy the roadmap, leave token holders with the current snapshot of the business, which is basically worthless in 99% of cases. We're certainly headed towards a world where tokens are priced on their cash flows. It's just the tokens will also be priced at zero. So I think the key takeaway here is that we had this token versus equity discussion on the different light yesterday, and now it continues obviously with this big acquisition and with a deal that is structured in such a fashion that Circle gets exactly what they need, which is tech talent people in the IP to obviously be able to use that, but they exclude the token component, the foundation, which they did not want to have any business with, and that is to the detriment of the people who are holding the Axelar token, who are maybe like hoping as a part of this acquisition, whether it's retail or investors, that they would be profiting from that. But this is not the case here.
Yeah, this one's a really difficult one in the sense that I was thinking about this from a legal perspective, and remember when I talk about the law, although I used to be a lawyer, like this is not officially legal advice in any way. But I saw this take on the timeline as well. Like this is incredibly, incredibly unjust. Like if you have funded the creation of a company and funded them at any stage, whether it's at the beginning, if it's much later on, and you believe that you have participated in the creation of that entity, you must be aligned with that future upside. And I think again, this is an example of how crypto it could potentially struggle moving forward if we don't figure out to what extent these tokens align with equity. And in this scenario of someone coming in and saying, we want to buy this part of your company out, that part of the company out, like what happens to the rest of all of these believers that you've had and people who've invested capital into you? Like it cannot be a serious industry if on that type of occasion you just get completely rugged and the team and the founders kind of disappear and enjoy the money, but all these other people have been, which by the way, the team obviously had a huge proportion of the tokens as well, right? And maybe at some point they're selling because they've got a proportion of these governance rights, tokens with governance rights. So they've profited double then. They've profited when they managed to sell their own tokens to the market, assuming that they did do, and I think teams are entitled to do that. But then they get to profit the second time when you have someone trying to buy you out separately. But then the other people who had invested in you don't get to participate in it. And I think when you see things like that, you're going to think, well, should I take the risk and buy this token, which maybe stands for equity or maybe it doesn't, or should I just buy an actual company that is potentially going to be really good over the next couple of years, and maybe you have a bit more legal protection for how that company behaves in a takeover scenario. That's not to say, by the way, just as a small caveat, you can get screwed over as an investor multiple ways. Even in a traditional company, you can get diluted like crazy. All kinds of things can happen. It's not like the equity route is perfect, especially at the early stage. So just wanted to make that point. Like it's not perfect by any means, but I think it's, again, it's part of the tension that's existing at the moment. Ledge, what do you think?
I kind of think it's good that this is happening. Obviously, not from the perspective of Axelar holders, investors, but again, from like kind of showing this discussion of equity versus token, because I think this is discussion I kind of disagree with some of Mike Dudas's points here, because ultimately we talk about token utility a lot, and what a token in most cases is not. It's not equity in the company, so there will be ways to navigate around that in a transaction like that. And obviously, if the stake or the incentive is big enough, because as a founder, if you don't care about like investors' morals, whatever, just from a purely monetary perspective, looking at that, you have the option to basically try to structure a token deal and see, okay, how many tokens do I have left? How much are they worth? How many of them can I sell? How much money could I make by that? And if an offer also exists, probably that was the more lucrative one in this case, by being bought out by Coinbase, and that is worth more than the tokens that they were holding, then you just purely from a monetary perspective, not talking about reputation, ethical, moral, legal implications, just talking about this financial layer exclusively, then this is the more attractive offer then. And that kind of shows exactly the problems that we have with tokens, because ultimately you have this additional layer that you also have to trust the founders that they do everything which is in the best interest of token holders and investors, because you do not have the protection of the equity layer. And with a publicly traded company, you don't have that. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously there's risks as well, but you don't have this risk in particular,
Sure.
to that extent, that you can get screwed in a deal like that.
Indeed. Okay. Look, Oxy's got his hand raised, so I want to get to him for a final thought here to tie it up. But as we mentioned before, delighted to say we've got Adam, founder of Sport.Fun, joining us in just a minute to get into their ICO discussion, which will be going live today, live on Legion and Kraken. So Adam's coming with us in just a moment. Oxy, tie this topic up for us before we get into our interview today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been talking about this for like a couple months now, and it's like the incentive alignment between equity holders and token holders is just so drastically different right now that it like I don't like the worlds are just not even remotely close together, and I feel like they need to be tied together before we can really see companies grow in a meaningful way in the current environment. Because I guess from an equity perspective, a token for the most part is a cost center only to the company. Like it's a marketing cost. So to spend 10% of your revenue to go out and buy back your token, if that's the only way that you're going to accrue value to the token is by revenue buybacks, that's a cost center, and it's really only a marketing expense to a lot of these companies. So like the incentive alignment just isn't there. And a lot, obviously there's utility and there's use cases for these tokens, but I don't know, it's just not the token value is purely based on speculation, not the end value of the company, because the only people that are going to get paid out are the equity, like in an acquisition like this, are the people that hold the equity. So
indeed,
it's just not correlated anyway.
Very, very bullish on equity, whether that's crypto equity or normal equity. I've been saying this for time, for crypto equity specifically as well. I love crypto equity over the last year. I think all of these companies will be super valuable, and that's where you get the guaranteed gain. Sure, tokens can be valuable too, and I think people are working hard towards that end. But when you get to hold the equity as well, you just feel a bit safer, I think, is my kind of general perspective since I've started angeling into a few things as well. But look, I mean, maybe this will be part of the next part of the discussion as well. Delighted to say, as we said at the top of the show, we've got Adam, founder of Sport.Fun, with us today. Sport.Fun is where you can own the world of sport. Excited to dive into what that exactly means with the fun ticker to launch soon. Adam, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. How are you doing, my man? Oh, you're currently on mute. I think if you unmute, we will be able to hear you. Right in front.
Right.
There we go.
How you doing, guys? So obviously huge day for us with the ICO coming up. But yeah, I was just listening to your conversation about there at Axelar, and yeah, really, really interesting topic, and something we've obviously thought very deeply about over the last year as we've been preparing our token and the way our product works, but also the way we want to run a company and like who it's for, right? You have to decide that as a founder. So yeah, would love to get into all that, but also tell you a bit about what we're working on as well.
Absolutely.
Whatever you guys want to cover.
So I think, look, this is the way we usually do these things. I mean, let's definitely dive into maybe that first, and I want to talk about how you're just experiencing the market. But I find the best way to talk with founders is, yes, we're going to get to the product. Yes, we're going to get to the raise, all that stuff. But as an angel who's participated over the last year and a half, 2 years in this stuff, so much comes down to the founder. I've reflected, like, so much of this has come down to the founder. So we also want to give you a chance to speak to some of your history, what you've been up to before, how you've been building out Sport.Fun now, which was Football.Fun. So we'll kind of weave all of that stuff into it. We'll get to the product in a bit. We'll get to the raise details in a bit. But maybe thinking about just that previous conversation we were having, Adam, you mentioned like thinking through the type of company you want to build, the philosophy behind the company, and you know some other companies now experiencing some of these challenges. How was that thinking process as you were thinking about this token that was going to come down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really. It's hard to underplay how many hours we've spent thinking about that. Certainly in my head and with the whole team as well. So, I think really you have to set like an ultimate goal as a founder, right? And traditionally, that has been, hey, I'll do my 5 years and then I'll try and sell to the biggest player in the space. So for us as a sports product, you might be like, hey, let's try and build this so that one day we can sell it to DraftKings. It's a possible future. There's two reasons why that wasn't particularly interesting to me. One, I've been acquired before in a previous business, and I didn't enjoy it, frankly. Like, you end up, as a founder, you end up working for someone else. Fine, but it just wasn't for me. So like I would be working towards a future where I just wouldn't enjoy it, right? One. Second of all, you're not really doing anything innovative. You join crypto to do cool things and new things. So that is a consideration. And third of all, I'm not even sure it's possible to sell my business to DraftKings. So we have basically in the middle of our product, there's this decentralized marketplace. It's all the money is in a smart contract. Like our entire business model is that we kind of don't take people's money in the first place. We only take our 3% market fee. When someone spends $1, 97% goes into this smart contract in the middle, which is actually just player funds. I can't withdraw it even if I wanted to. It exists on chain. Imagine the conversation with the compliance department at DraftKings. Right? They'd just be like, "Fuck this!" Like, sorry, I don't know if I can swear on your show, but they wouldn't get it, right? So I think it's just too difficult, and there's a reason we do that. We actually want this to be a player-owned, player-driven product. It's more exciting to me. It's more interesting. So yeah, we could chat a bit about that, but yeah, ultimately, I do think it's kind of in our interest. I do still believe in this idea that if you do share that upside and people understand why they want to be a supporter of Sport.Fun because they're aligned with that whole thing via the token, you do get a marketing bonus for that. So,
okay.
Typically like, a game studio, for example, might spend in the end like 50, 60% of their budget on marketing, right? What if you don't? What if you spend 50% on your players who kind of do the marketing for you because they're so happy they share it with their friends, right? That might be, to me, there's some truth in that. And it's about exploring that and seeing how far we get with it.
Interesting. Okay, so we'll definitely get into more of the product side as you started to allude towards. You also mentioned getting acquired before in something, in a previous life. So just to give you a chance to speak to that history, what did you do before Sport.Fun? Maybe a bit pre-Web3, during Web3, because I know you were acquired within Web3 as well. What was that history for you?
Yeah, I sort of a career of two halves. So I started working in the UK government when I was 21. I was actually a bartender for 7 years before that, if you're really interested. But yeah, so 10 years in the UK government, really working on like big infrastructure projects, IT projects, infrastructure, that kind of thing. Also did 2 years in the British Foreign Office as a diplomat. All these things were interesting. And I think something I value about people when I'm looking to hire is that they did a whole other career before they got to Web3. It's a bit of a theme of our company, actually, like properly degen, but they all did something else before. And yeah, so then really I hit my 30s and I was like, this is kind of someone else's good career was what I felt in my kind of heart, really. And I didn't really know what to do. And I got some advice from a friend of mine who was building his own business. And he was just like, do anything, right? Like whatever you can make, even if it's really small, just start that way. And something I've always been interested in and passionate about is fantasy sports and data. So I literally started a blog on the side just for like interest. And that basically grew into a data service for like people who were trying to win real cash fantasy sports games. And I was able to grow that to 2,000 paying subscribers, working with about 15 high net worth clients who were basically doing like professional betting. And that became big enough to leave my job. And people thought I was insane. Like you're leaving the Foreign Office to be a blogger, they'd say. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm from the UK as well. People are super negative about being entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like people just kind of didn't get it, but I enjoyed it for like 2 or 3 years. And then I did get a bit lonely because it was kind of like a one-man business. Like it made money, but I wasn't building anything. It was like being on a treadmill. So the thing I did was reach out to So Rare at that time, who were kind of kicking off. That was about 2020. And I was working with like a big distribution partner in fantasy sports. So I basically propositioned them that I would build them their first free-to-play game and work with this major distributor in the UK. to help onboard new users to the SoRare platform. They said yes, so they started funding that. That ran for like 2 or 3 years as like another sort of side business thing. But I learned a lot in that time about like how the first movers in fantasy sports like Top Shot and SoRare, and all the issues that they had. They did a lot of great stuff as well, but some of the issues of like, hey, using NFTs instead of they became really hard to get people to buy, because most fantasy sports players, they want to hold Mbappe, right? You've got to connect them to the stars they're watching every Sunday. If suddenly you're selling them Korean J League players because that's the only cards they can afford, they're like, dude, this is not my sport. But yeah, there's a whole list of things we've kind of tried to fix in our product. I then joined a gaming studio who were building a mobile gaming fantasy sports title as head of product. They were nominally like Web 2.5. They wanted to do NFTs, but it was very like Web3 light. And after FTX, they lost faith entirely in Web3. They wanted to just make it a mainstream product. And I disagreed. I was like, I want to stay in Web3. I think this is the opportunity. So I left on good terms, but we just had different visions. And that kind of randomly led me to join. At the time, there were an NFT tooling shop, basically like helping like people launch NFT projects. But there was an engineer there who had a great payments product as like a feature. And I was like, guys, this product bangs. It was basically like cross-chain payments. So we recast the company and the product called Spark that actually processed Portal Coin's ICO like way back in 2024. So they took $28 million in a day, and it all went through our payment system. So we then built that to like 50, 60 clients, and then Portal Coin actually acquired us like with their war chest. So I ended up working for them for like 8-10 months as part of that earnout period. But really, I just wanted to get back to fantasy sports, and I founded Football.Fun 14 months ago now. Self-funded it initially because no one else would. Sports fantasy was not popular at the time. No one talked about prediction markets. I've got a lot of like VC friends, and they were just like, dude, no one's giving you money for this. I funded it myself, plus a few friends who were probably being a little bit sympathetic, if I'm honest. But we've kind of justified it so far. So we then delivered an MVP in February. It was free to play. We did no marketing whatsoever other than like share it within networks of people we knew from SoRare and other products, and like Top Shop. Got about 2,000 users on the free to play game. And what they told us was, hey, this is fun. And it's fun even without money. And that's what I was trying to prove, because you've got to get to that point before it's even worth introducing the cash. And then August, we introduced the cash. We tried our best to go viral. We succeeded. And now we've done, I think it's plus 90 million trade volume, 10 million in revenue.
Mil, yeah.
The number moves, so I need to keep on top of that June. Been a wild year, but probably one of the toughest and most enjoyable years of my career. Absolutely.
Pretty exciting stuff. Loads of parallels actually, I think, between people getting into Web3, dedicated to Web3, kind of hitting their 30s and thinking, no, I've got to really try and build something for myself here. So a lot of parallels there for me. I've got a question on the game. So if we start talking about the game a little bit, you mentioned that a lot of people maybe wouldn't have been interested to fund this type of thing. And yet a lot of people love fantasy sports. So a lot of people love fantasy sports. A lot of people love, through their passion for the game, participating with their friends in the various leagues all around the world for all different sports. And actually this question came from one of our community members in our Telegram yesterday when we announced that we'd be speaking to you. He said, why would, like, what's your best pitch for people who maybe don't understand it yet? Why would they play Sport.Fun, whichever sport that you're kind of focused on at the time, rather than the traditional leagues with their friends?
There's two parts to that question. One is like, why would no one invest in it? And I think there was a lot of excitement. VCs aren't just one person usually. So usually you'd get 2 or 3 of them that are bullish. But there's always that one guy on the investment committee who's like, I've seen this all before, man. Like I invested in Top Shot way back when, and it failed, so this is definitely going to fail too. And you're like, well, no, because what previous products showed is there's huge demand. Like, as you said, like sports in theory should obviously be one of the top verticals. It's a question of execution, not genre. Like, I think everyone would understand that like quite instinctively, but people have a lot of PTSD, and you know, if they've done something which looks like it before or whatever. So that was just the case. It's not the case now, because now that we've proved traction, you know, you get a lot more interest. But ultimately, we decided to go to the ICO route, which was different reasons. But to answer the question directly on why Football.Fun, there's a few fundamental reasons. I think one, if you compare this to Top Shot, and there's probably no product, by the way, that has onboarded more people I know to crypto than Top Shot. Like, a lot of people got in that way. Collectibles are cool and people like opening packs, but there was no game. Like, there was nothing to keep people interested, give those cards value after the fact. So that was just, you know, it's quite obvious why that fell apart, and it's quite obvious what the solution is. Like, give them something people want to come back and play. Our retention is over 70% from like our sort of month one players. It's a bit lower in the people who joined when we like hit a peak of hype. Sure. Probably like 40%, because they were really just kind of chasing the next thing. But the important thing is, like, those core players, like your fantasy fans, they're sticking with the game. They're enjoying it. Like, that's one of the most important metrics that we have. And then I think the key innovation that we have are two areas. One is it's tokens, not NFTs. Trading is better with tokens. NFTs are great for collectibles. That's my thesis behind this. The second thesis is be lean, which comes down to your company size. So don't have stupid offices in New York and Seoul and Paris and go crazy with like huge events. Like, we're quite modest. We actually, for the first 10 months of our company up to when we launched Pro in August, we spent $350,000 in 10 months. So we are used to being frugal. And that extends to, you know, licensing deals. So we have Patrice Evra as an ambassador, but we're very careful to like stay within the law, but also not overspend on licensing, because this can kill you. If a club wants 60% of your revenue to sell a Real Madrid trading card, you're innately extractive. You've got no chance of like rewarding users in that way. So we're trying to like absolutely maximize rewards to users, because one, it's going to be fun, but it's also going to be rewarding. We want to be even more rewarding than DraftKings, and we think we are. Once you kind of work out the math is quite confusing, and our UI is not great at surfacing how much money people are actually winning. But I routinely watch people opening like $300 in packs, and they're just like, cool, another one. And I'm like, if you just want to bet for $300, you'd be like screaming. So there's something wrong with the way we present that information that we're working on. Like, it is good. Like, the rewards are there because we really try and maximize that for the user. And then it's liquid, right? So like, you can trade this real fast in real time. You never have to worry whether someone else is going to buy it or not. There's always a price, because what people don't really get is that this is a sports game on the surface, and that is how you play it. Once you dig under the hood, it's a marketplace. You know, it's actually built on Uniswap v2. It has all of the features that successful products have, which is basically tokens that move fast and that you can trade and that have volatility for the early market. Sometimes, and when we think about going mainstream, it has too much volatility right now. And that's something we're looking to work on as we push to more mainstream next year.
A lot of interesting stuff you shared there. I'm just going to pick up on the one number. I've got one more question on product, and then Legendary is going to ask a couple of questions on the raise itself. Sure. So you mentioned, maybe we'll throw up the dashboard here, Max, if you can, and share some of these numbers. Done $95 million of trade volume. I think it was across 15,000 fans, or that number might have changed over time. Are you able to break down some of these numbers for us as we're scrolling through the dashboard? Because obviously initially you launched as football.fun. Now you're sport.fun. When does this activity happen? Is it like concentrated around games, game time? Which sports? Like I know you've got NFL now as well. How is that feeding into it? Which teams? Have you noticed any specific teams that are doing better? Do you want to break down some of these numbers for us?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And not far away from the big 100 million, which will be a good moment. It is interesting. Like the macroeconomics of this is often quite driven by sentiment. So we do obviously get spikes in, August was our biggest spike just because I think we hit 75% mind share or something insane on crypto, if you believe Kaito. And that was our biggest peak, which has nothing to do with the product, and it's nothing to do whether Salah is any good or anything like that. And we've also experienced a little bit of a downturn, but maybe not as bad as other things if Bitcoin nukes, for example. Our product is in stables, but you do get that effect. Like if people are bearish or they lost money on whatever coin, they kind of want to withdraw from our market to protect themselves. So we've definitely seen a bit of that as well. But if you drill in and look at like what moves individual prices, it's actually super logical and it's tied to sports. So it will be because that player scored a hat trick, or because he broke his leg, or he got a transfer rumor. The actual player prices, people are playing the game as it's meant to be played in that respect. Even though on a macro level, it is still a little bit more connected to sentiment than I would like. And that's something that we want to change next as we push into next year. There's a ton of ways you can do that. I think there's UX psychology at play, like I think at the moment, we're probably a little bit too geared towards looking a bit like a coin market cap. So people focus on the market cap, which is probably not actually what you want in a sports game. You actually want to focus on how you finished in that tournament, your division ranking, and maybe the money should be a little bit more in the background for that kind of mainstream audience. So that's something we're thinking about. Deeper liquidity is also helpful to like avoid those price swings. But yeah, there's a number of ways we're seeking to tackle that. The fees, that actually underreports because it doesn't include revenue from like pack sales or like contract renewals. So our revenue is actually over 10 million. So for example, like in the initial sale of football.fun and NFL, that was over like $2 million each. And we actually used 90% of that money to seed liquidity in the market. So that's actually a big barrier for like anyone coming along, like trying to copy what we've done. And there have been 7 of them, I think, in our time. They're all dead now. They don't realize how hard this is. They think, oh, I could do a football game. It's not a football game. It's actually a very complex DeFi product. And it took us over a year to build, and it was hard. Like, and I've probably got the best engineering team by far that I've ever worked with. And it's really, really challenging to build it, but we're getting there and making progress each week.
Interesting. That's like, I think, a really helpful point to bring out, which maybe some people might not have thought about. Final one from me, maybe just a quick one before Legendary dives into the raise. These are impressive numbers for 2025. Obviously, we're coming towards the end of the year now. How expansive are you looking? Like, what are you projecting for 2026?
I don't really think about it in projecting, like trying to get to 1 billion. Like, I think that is a function of your retention and how many users you require. So I think the plan for 2026 is obviously NFL will wrap up mid-February. We do have a whole off-season reward program. So there's like reasons why you continue to hold those players. Some people won't, and that's fine. But the US market bounces straight into the US hosted World Cup. So even though like NFL fans will probably get interested for a very brief 3 months in soccer, as they call it, and then they will immediately go back to NFL afterwards. But part of the reason for putting NFL there was actually, build up that audience. And NA, North America, is actually our biggest country now by user count, which is very interesting to investors and the like, because they look at our geos and go, North America and Western Europe is your biggest areas, and these are the highest net worth countries, as opposed to countries that are like, hey, I've got 20,000 users, but they're all in low spending geographies. Ours is actually predominantly very high spending geographies, which is bullish. And that NA audience, we think we can get interested in the World Cup. So yeah, there's that kind of movement. There's obviously staged expansion into other sports. NBA is the obvious one. There's some really interesting ones as well, which open up new audiences. So I was on a Korean podcast last week, and the dream sport for them is actually League of Legends and esports, and very easy to like convert our format to that. I actually got the name Sport.Fun about 8 months ago. Like we think about these things, and that to me is really exciting because it would bring in a totally different audience, whereas NBA will just kind of pull in more of the NA audience. And then one of our investors is Indian as well. So I was chatting to him yesterday, and he was just telling me about the depth and the amount of spend in cricket in that continent. So yeah, the possibilities are there. It actually takes us about 3 to 4 weeks to launch a new sport now. It's just a question of when it's an appropriate time to do it, and when we've got enough liquidity to do that. So it's not going to happen next week. And then I think really our target is, I hate it when people say we're going to go mainstream because it's not specific enough. That's 6 billion people, right? Like the next goal is, hey, let's go out and get 100,000 sports bettors, people who just love playing these like real cash sports games. So that's our primary objective. Once ICO is done, TGE is done, we know how to do that bit. You do the fanfare, you do the Web3 excitement. But what I'm most looking forward to actually is building out the product and bringing it to the standard where I think the mainstream users will actually start like adopting it in a serious way.
Gotcha. Love all these insights. And talking about the ICO, the Legion sale just opened 16 minutes ago. We want to go through all of the details on that, but I want to start with a specific question. You had this post out there saying it was not a hard decision, and the meme of the choice to make which button to click. One button says 60 mil FTV and community upside. The other button says 1 billion FTV, then rug. How did you come up specifically with that $60 million FTV number?
My memes always seem like a good idea until I talk to someone serious. I'll say that.
We enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't having a pop at any project in particular. I got some people who had invested in whatever, but I think it's just the principle here of, yeah, we could have, we were a few weeks before ICO, we were actually talking to investors about selling at 100 million FDV to investors, and they were paying it. And, it would have been a fair price. But as we got towards the ICO, we kind of read the room, and we're like, hey, there's been a series of ICOs that have obviously been like way overpriced. What if you don't do that? Like, what if you actually give people a fair valuation where they see it having upside and kind of room to grow, based on our revenue? Even like Warren Buffett would look at our revenue and say, hey, if they can sustain that, then that is a pretty fair valuation. It's actually got something to tie it to. So we thought, hey, if we can convince the rational people as well as the degens that this is actually a good entry price, then why not go for that? Because it actually doesn't matter where you start. It actually matters where you finish. And we just think this is just a way of generating way more excitement than trying to give ourselves like a vanity metric of like a big starting FTV. And typically that has not gone well because it puts way too much pressure on the team on that moment. You have to be honest about where the crypto community is, right? There's as you guys were alluding to before I came on, like there's just this like trust deficit between founders and team and the community as well. So really the moment anyone gets any kind of gain, they're just like, right, screw this, I gotta sell, like, because I know it's definitely going to go down and this token's useless and no teams are ever any good. And like there is just that feeling. which is really tough actually as a builder, because you are actually trying to build something good, but you also have to catch the strays of every other project that person's got into that hasn't worked out for them. So we're trying our hardest to be the exception, and the way to start that is to start at a reasonable valuation and then try and push up from there.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I want to double down on one of the things that you said, and then I'm conscious of time as we're moving towards the end of the interview. I'll keep it a bit shorter on this one. You said, people typically are worried about the high valuations. Token price will come down at some point. They're happy to sell the token. And if I look at the details of the sale, you did go with a pretty generous unlock, 50% to be unlocked at TG, 50% then is linearly vesting over the next 6 months. Just to get all the other details in, 3 million is the target. I think 4.5 mil is the hard cap that you have on Legion. But I'm particularly interested in that unlock of 50% of TG, which again, in my opinion, I think is a big unlock there. Can you share some of the thinking behind that unlock?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not everyone agrees with that. So some people have said, "Hey, we're only buying 100% unlocks right now," which screams to me like PTSD of like, I just want to get out of this as soon as possible. So yeah, there's always a lot of thought that goes into this. Ultimately, you want to give your early fans, including people who've been playing with us like the last 6 months, and also people who come in at ICO, you obviously want to give them a good experience, a good deal. And you have to balance that with like not giving away so much supply that you've just got like, there's just no chance that you have a good chart. Ultimately, like every team wants to have a good chart, and it's good for morale of the project. It's what holders want. You need to start low or start reasonable. And then you need some reasonable control of supply. Now, some people don't like that because they're just like, give me my big unlock. But our contention is, hey, look, if we've put in the effort to make sure that we can accommodate a certain amount of expected sell volume, but still carry on and not have this as one of those charts that, you've seen all of them recently where they just launch at some stupid price and immediately drop 60, 70%. That token is just, the sentiment behind that then becomes really tough. I don't think, like, based on our preparations, I'm not expecting that to happen. I can't speculate or like give opinion, but we are really trying to avoid that. I think the difference with us, even if it did, I think we've got the real product to like, just dig in, grind it back up, work harder. We've already got live markets, right? So we get judged every single day by market cap. We know how that feels. We've experienced the massive hype, we've experienced the dip, and we've experienced like grinding it back up again, all within a 13-week period. So we're not completely new to it, but it's a really tough thing to do. It is an open market. This is what people want, and it is the amazing thing about crypto, and it's also the thing that sucks the most about crypto. Like, you can't control it. It is what it is, but that's the game that we play.
Interesting. Love it, Adam. Look, I really appreciate your thoughts, appreciate your time. I think it's been a really interesting interview thus far. Just as we close out here, is there anything that we've missed that you think that you'd love to have the opportunity to share? Like, what's the thing that people should keep in mind, not just as they go into the ICO or make a decision on the ICO, but also kind of thinking forward? We're just going to share your socials at the same time as you kind of talk us out here. We've got at football.fun if you're wanting to follow what's going on with Sport.Fun, and you've got Adam FDF_ to follow Adam, who's the founder. So final thoughts here, Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. You want to, obviously an ICO is a big day for us, but what we're really trying to be is that crypto product everyone's been asking for a long time, which is genuinely like fun, entertaining, people actually use it. The token's got genuine utility. So yeah, what we're really looking for is people who want to be a part of that. And it's not we obviously know how to do the number go up thing and the hype marketing thing. And we do that because it's necessary for the kind of crypto world. But ultimately, we have a real long-term vision to, like, take on the DraftKings of the world. And we're looking for partners who want to get involved in the ICO, who would like to see that happen. I think it would be genuinely good, not just for FDF, but we'd like to then see more crypto apps that actually have a good product that people want to use. So yeah, if that vibes with you guys, would love you guys to check us out.
Thanks so much, Adam. Appreciate it. So just a reminder, if you want to check out, if you want to follow along, Adam is at AdamFDF_ to follow his personal account. You've got football.fun as the Sport.Fun account. And as we mentioned, the ICO is now live on Legion and Kraken now, if you would like to participate. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your thoughts. It's been really helpful today. And just a reminder for everyone else listening in, whether it's you've been here before, or if you're new to us, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X Video, YouTube. And you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcasts too. We hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.